This podcast has been brought to you by thethriving-startup.com. Hello and welcome to the Thriving Startup Podcast, the podcast that helps aspiring entrepreneurs just like you to start, grow and thrive in business. On today's episode, I am joined by a member of the management team at Birmingham City University, who is here to share his story of starting a business that was passion-fueled around what he loved doing. I'm very pleased to introduce you to Danny Pardoe. Danny, welcome to the Thriving Startup Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Very well, Charlotte. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So, Danny, you're a slightly different guest compared to the previous guest that we've had on the show, because I invited you on in terms of our values certainly align, and we're both working in the education space. So you currently work for, is it Birmingham University? Is that correct?
Birmingham City University is where I currently am, but yes,
Yeah.
education is certainly both high on our priorities, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And you've previously been a business owner, so you've had a photography business and you've also had your own podcast. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yes, both ventures that I've been involved in, and happy to talk about those as we go through.
Fantastic. So your role then at Birmingham City Uni. So what is it that you currently do? What's your role there?
So my official job title, if you're sitting comfortably, is Business Development Manager for Degree Apprenticeships in the Faculty of Computing, Engineering and the Built Environment, which also includes a bit of architecture as well, which basically means my job is to make sure our current employers and apprentices are happy and satisfied with the learning that is taking place, and also to go and speak to new employers and see if we can help them with their training needs as well, whether it's new staff or current staff that they currently have. So ensuring that employers and apprentices are making the progress as they want to make, essentially.
Fantastic. So just repeat your job title then again, please.
Are you sure? Have you got time? So
yes,
Business
I'm
Development Manager
intrigued.
for Degree Apprenticeships in the Faculty of Computing, Engineering and the Built Environment, which also includes architecture, that last being bracket.
Does that even fit on a business card?
No, it has been slightly edited for a business card. Otherwise, I need one of those novelty check things, you know, they do for charity and stuff. And
yes. Yeah, I think that's the longest job title I think I've ever heard in the history of speaking to people about what their positions are. It's impressive on that one, is Danny. Just before we just move on to all things work related, your backdrop is fascinating. What are they, Danny?
I'm a massive American football fan, have been since about 7 years old. I think he's 7 or 8 years old is what I remember. So yeah, I'm a huge San Francisco 49ers fan. It's a big part of who I am and the people I speak to and conversations I have. And I guess I like my lifestyle, my TV watching, my interests, certainly from September to February. Yeah, been a fan since the 80s. The sport is growing now, which is great. I love to see it. But yeah, quite a big fan, and anybody who speaks to me for more than about 10 minutes, as demonstrated here, will finally say whether they want it or not.
Yeah, it's very loud and in your face. And I just thought it was worthwhile mentioning, because anybody who's actually watching this, they could be like, what's that behind him? I can't quite make out what that is. So San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, that is my team. Right. Well, it's not my team, but it's a team I support, if you're going to be technical about it.
It's the team that's in your heart.
It is, yes. They were very popular in the 80s. My folks kind of fell in love with San Francisco a little bit, and as is often the way when people get into new sports, you often support the best team. Here we are supporting the same team 30, 40 years later.
Goodness me, an avid fan through and through. Yeah, so thank you. I just wanted to clear that up, because it's like there's a lot there that just shows that we've got a very, very big fan of something here. Yes, okay, so let's just backtrack then, Danny. So you started your own photography business, but it was a particular niche, wasn't it? So could you just share a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, certainly. So 2009, I guess I officially started it. It was called Concerts Captured. There's still some stuff on Flickr, I think, if you know what Flickr is. I've shown my age on so many levels here today. So that essentially came from, I have a huge passion for music, which has come from various things, particularly rock and heavy metal is my main thing. I always loved music, always loved going to concerts. Live music was always a passion. And I was always into photography as well, which came mostly from my dad. I remember having a digital camera before everybody had digital cameras. So we're talking 5, 06, 07, that kind of range. We had digital cameras. And I used to take it to gigs and disposable cameras as well. Oh my gosh, nobody's going to know what they are. There's going to be some serious Googling after this episode.
I do.
You do? Good. Me and you, then I'll just talk to your audience then for a bit. So disposable cameras, used to take them to gigs as well, and used to just go down the front and whatnot to take pictures. And I thought, this is good fun. You'd get maybe one good photo per show, and I thought, what if you could turn this into something that was more than just going to concerts? So that led to me buying a proper camera, the big ones that the pros have, and essentially I thought, how do I get in? Because nobody's going to hire me. So I'm not going to be able to go to a magazine or a website and say, oh, hire me, I have zero experience. So I thought, how can I, for want of a better word, how can I blag my way in to these concerts to get photos to build my portfolio? So I thought, I'll set up my own media business. So I set up my own media business. So a friend of mine, Dave, created me an amazing website, and I would just upload the photos to that. And I got in through that way, saying I am my own media business. And then essentially, I kind of was. I started doing reviews. I'd take people with me. They would do reviews, and I would do the photos. And it was popular enough that I could actually get into some shows. And then it just snowballed from that. But it was all with the aim of, essentially, the goal was to photograph Metallica, my favourite band, and get people watching go, oh my gosh, you've done 49ers and Metallica already. But the goal was to photograph them, and it took me 6 years of lots of other gigs and things like that. But I got there in the end, and I shot at them for myself and for Planet Rock, the radio station. And obviously there were lots of cool things in between. Photographed some amazing shows. Do you want some names? Shall I drop some names who I photographed?
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
Okay, so photographed Justin Bieber's second ever show, Jay-Z, Drake, Foo Fighters, Linkin Park. Gosh, there is a massive list on. I'm trying to think through. Iron Maiden, Biscuit a couple of times, Pendulum. So yeah, a real wide range. And that also opened up lots of doors to go into other things as well, and the variety of, because I'm a rock and metal kind of guy, but going to country shows, rap shows, hip-hop shows was a real eye-opener as well. So that was the photography business. In a nutshell, set out to achieve something, took 6 years, and had a great time doing it. What was
your favourite show to?
Other than Metallica, because that was the end goal.
The Holy Grail.
That was it. That was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Probably something like Slash, the guitarist from Guns N' Roses. Most people know. Yeah. He did a show in Stoke, which is on a Blu-ray. So if you look carefully, you can see me down the front, and I look like I'm not having a good time, but in my head, I'm absolutely freaking out.
Yeah.
So probably that, because it was like childhood hero, not far from here, little club. Everything was set up really nice because they were filming it, so it was actually really, really easy to photograph. So something like that, but also things like Justin Bieber or N-Dubs, if you remember N-Dubs. And
I do, yeah.
Gosh, who else? JLS,
Number one.
Remember JLS?
Yeah.
There you go. But all of those as well were like, this is so different to what I've done. So wide variety. But yeah, if I had to choose one, I'd go with Slash, because it was just a pinch me kind of moment.
Yeah. Well, I went to see Guns N' Roses. Oh God, I think it was back in. Oh, let me think. Back in 2017. Yeah, 2017 in London. And that was a completely pinch me experience. It was. Yeah, it was.
I was there as well.
Were you really? Oh God. It's amazing, isn't it? How we're just linked in so many different ways. That show was on my bucket list, because although I wasn't around, I wasn't walking this earth when Guns N' Roses were at their absolute peak. But I grew up on listening to their music. My dad was a huge fan. And on my bucket list, always there was, if I could just watch them perform November Rain live, I've made it. That was, so to be able to have the opportunity to go there, it was a completely pinch me moment. And Slash is just in a league of his own, isn't he? The guy never stops.
And he stands on I remember that. And he stands on the top of the stage, and all the little firework things come down behind him.
Yeah.
And it's just the most ultimate rock and roll moment that you could ask for, isn't it? So I'm glad you got to do that. God. That's cool.
Yeah, I could talk about Guns N' Roses for an entire episode, but that's by the by. So that business then, Danny, you started that based on looking at what would fulfill you from a passion point of view. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially it was a hobby that paid for itself, but it was that what do I really love doing? Because the amount of time
Yeah.
and effort it took to do it, the number of evenings you had to give up, and then the time for
Mhm.
editing and things, because there's a lot to do around it. But then you've got all the organisation of contacting the press people and the PR people, and then the social media side. So the time it takes is intense. So because I had that passion for it and I really enjoyed it, and I had the end goal as well. But the end goal was that I am working towards one day I'm going to shoot Metallica. So it was working towards that as well. So it really was that combination of I really, really want to do this, and I want to do a good job of it as well. I could see
Yeah.
other photographers, and I'd always followed some. And I remember at the Slash one, I was in the photo pit with a chap called Ross Halfin, who does a lot of Metallica photography, and everybody else really. So to stand next
Yeah.
to like one of your photography heroes,
Yeah.
kind of made it. So yeah, certainly the passion and the end goal was huge in regards to that.
Yeah. So why did you choose to stop?
I think it was a combination of things. So one, I think I'd reached the point that I wanted to with it. I'd accomplished everything I wanted to with it. And it was very much a lifestyle thing at the time. It was a lot of evenings and weekends and stuff like that. And then about a year, where are we, 2014, 15? Then my daughter came along. So that changes how you
Lovely.
spend your evenings. And I think, I'd done what I needed to do with it, and I was happy with that.
Yeah.
It had been a 5-6 year run. So I guess, I don't know if I lost the passion for it, but certainly not having that. It was that what's next
Yeah.
kind of thing, I'd even been fortunate enough to go to some winners kind of practice sessions, meet some coaches and players and photograph their practices. And I was like, wow, I've kind of done everything I want to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it, really.
Yeah. Well, when you've reached the end of something, it's absolutely fine just to admit, okay, I've come here to achieve all that I needed to achieve. Now that I can look at what's next, what can I do next? I had a guest on the show previously, and she highlighted that you're never stuck. So she wanted to share. She was actually presenting a talk, which is why we ended up talking about this. She was at an event and delivering this talk, and she highlighted the reassurance to people that you are never stuck. So don't feel that if you've started one thing, then that's you, that's the choice that you've made, and you have to stick with it indefinitely, or that's the identity of you and you have to stick with that indefinitely. If things need to change, things change in our external surroundings, in terms of things that are out of our control, how can we adapt and evolve in what our skill set is and what our core values are? How can we mold those to then identify what's next? So after the photography business, is that when you started the podcast straight away, or is there a bit of a gap? When did the podcast start?
There's a bit of a gap. So during this whole time, so the photography started when, I guess during that whole time I was teaching as well. So I was a teacher of business studies. 05, 06, took a bit of a break due to some mental health reasons, which we can get to a bit later.
Okay.
But 2009, which is when I started the photography, that's when I started my teaching job there. That was at Joseph Chamberlain College in Birmingham, which was very good to me for 12 years. So during this whole time, I'm still teaching full time. And the photography is a hobby / business that pays for itself and brings a little bit here and there. But the podcast came about like a lot of podcasts did, just COVID time. So April 2020, forgive me while I lose eye contact and have to go through all these. So about April, May 2020, one of my passions. Do you want to hear about podcasts? Do you want more on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, share away.
One of my passions with teaching was always bringing in external people and employers to meet with the students, because that would have a bigger impact than anything I could possibly do. So when the messages came from employers and external projects and things like that, it enabled students to kind of build confidence and open their eyes a little bit to certain other things. I was always a big fan of that, and now I get to do it full time for my job, really, to link up employers with learners. Great.
Yeah.
But obviously COVID hit, and then you couldn't do that because nobody could go into buildings. So I thought, what would be a way to still do that? So I set up a podcast called Talking Business with Danny Pardoe, it was. And it ran for about 80 episodes or so. And again, that was very much, okay, what am I interested in? what am I kind of good at in terms of linking up and finding external people and having conversations and things. Literally my job to talk to people. So what am I kind of good at and passionate about, and what can I do to help as well? What can I do to help the
Yeah.
learners who are stuck at home like we all were, and just give them something different. And it got a little bit wider, but there were people all over the place. And again, that was the first 5 or 6 people were people I already knew. 2 of them were kind of teaching colleagues, one who'd Rob, who was in Vietnam, and another one who was Dan, who was local, and then some other people who I knew. So it was like, hey, we already know each other. Are you bored? Do you want to do some stuff? So yeah, they did. And then it just snowballed from there. And again, interviewed some really cool people on there, and I learned loads from that.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely, as much as it helped other people, I think it helped me more, because the
Yeah.
skills I developed through that were immense, and I didn't realise it at the time what I was learning. Yeah, and I would always ask the same question at the end. I was all, and spoiler if you're going to ask me this, but I would always ask, if you were 16, 17, what advice would you give yourself that you wish you'd listened to?
Yeah.
So I got to hear all of those, and I learned loads from that. It was a really cool experience. It was really good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. So, as you seem to be
80
doing with your
episodes.
podcast and getting a lot out of it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I started this podcast because, one, I love podcasts, so I thought, oh, it'd be nice to do one for myself. And let's use a platform that reaches a much wider audience to help them in whatever shape or form. Let's just help as many people as I can. 80 episodes. That's an impressive accomplishment, Danny.
It's it took a lot of time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's all good. How many have you done now? What are you on?
You are guest number 12. So yeah, it's going nicely. It's interesting because 2 months before the podcast actually went live, I announced on LinkedIn, hi world, I'm looking to start this podcast. If anybody is interested to join as a guest, please complete this, add an application form for people to fill in. So I had like a guest waiting list that was already generated 2 months ahead of the podcast actually starting to be recorded. And it's amazing because as soon as show number 1 was launched, I had 2 people approach me and said, we'd love to be on the show. Would you mind? Since then, 3 further people have asked if they can be on the show. And I also had a PR agent that contacted me, which was like, whoa, this is interesting. So this PR agent contacted me on behalf of her client, asking her if her client could be on the show. And I was like, oh, wow. I wasn't expecting traction like that. I know it's only small numbers at this stage, but, I'm not expecting to conquer the world in such early days. But even still, I'm actually really pleased and proud that that's the kind of traction that it's getting already in terms of interest. So yeah, it was a nice, that makes me feel really good moment.
Yeah, and that'll give you, I guess that gives you motivation and things to keep
Completely
going with it, and you are making an
Yeah.
impact and things. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. And the feedback that I've got on is nice. So as the audience is building, it's nice to receive little messages just to say, oh, hi, I've just listened to, episode blah, touched upon, this particular thing that was discussed. And that's really helped me. It's so simple. Thank you ever so much for sharing, or for the guest for sharing that particular thing. It's like, oh, yes, the purpose is coming to fruition. This is really good. Just one little thing from one episode, if it helps somebody, I've done my job. It's served its purpose, which is incredibly fulfilling, and it's why it started in the first place. But I know that you mentioned the struggles that you've had from a mental health point of view. Are you comfortable to share a little bit more about that with the audience, please?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So with regards to mental health, for those people who do know me, or those people who are just finding out about me, so I officially have depression, and I officially have anxiety now as well. So my first diagnosis was, we're going to go back to 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 3 years teaching in a secondary school, and then I had some mental health challenges. Let's go with those. And what that was what I can look back now and see, because it's happened a couple of times since, was a crisis of confidence, essentially. So imagine if I can still picture, when you close your eyes and you can still picture moment. So I can still see myself sitting at like my kitchen table, putting my contact lenses in. And it was like somebody had literally built a brick wall around the house and I couldn't get out. And I literally could not go to work. And it's quite surprising as well. It's not so surprising now because I'm better equipped to kind of understand what's going on and deal with it. But at the time, you've got your steady job, everything's going fine, you've got your life's going as I guess the storybooks say. Relationships are fine and everything. So you've got all that going on, and then all of a sudden, oh, you are not leaving your house today, and it's very confusing. So yeah, that was essentially at that point I thought that was the end of my teaching career, which was really annoying because I really enjoyed it and I worked really hard to build it up. So yeah, got diagnosed with depression around about that time. Took about a year off. So did all the things you're kind of supposed to do. That's when the photography started. And I was in a band at the time, did all that creative stuff you're supposed to do, and that actually helped. And then got back into teaching sixth form and had 12 really great years doing that. Met some fantastic people, some fantastic colleagues who I still see. And then again, another couple of years back, it was you're not leaving the house today, really? Like still? No, and again, it's that classic thing of, how old was I then? About 40, 42, something like that. You're like, oh, I'm a 42-year-old man. Obviously us men never have problems, do we? So it was very much that kind of, oh no, here we go again kind of thing. But yeah, but this is me, and I still face challenges with it on a daily basis. I take medication for it because that works for me. Everybody has their own ways to deal with it. So I try to eat right, exercise, and get out about as much as I can. Music is a big part of it. So yeah, that's my mental health, a little bit of a journey with regards to that. In fact, one more thing with regards to that. Really interesting. I was at an event last Wednesday chatting to somebody. I say last Wednesday, it's going to mess up your timings here, isn't it? Completely. I was at an event in the past, and I was chatting to somebody, and they were telling me all about their kind of life story and what they've done. Really interesting. It was all really positive. And then they asked me, tell me about you. Immediately went to all the negatives and all the bad stuff that's happened and all the failures and things like that.
Right, okay.
And I was chatting to a friend the other day, like afterwards, and working through that and going, you know what? Why did I do that? Why all the stuff I've done? My friend was saying, yeah, but what about all the other cool stuff you've done? Why didn't you mention that? And you go, oh yeah, I've done lots of cool stuff, but I didn't mention any of that because, and it was really strange because it was a really positive environment and everything was happy and everybody's always smiling and stuff at networking events. You know how it is.
Yes.
And then just the day after, I chatting to my friends, like, oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I often get, with the depression and stuff like, you're depressed, but you're always smiling and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a challenge every day.
It's a common misconception, isn't it? The hiding behind a smile. And when people who, who are always like the life and soul of a party, and, they come to a place where they're comfortable to share with somebody, actually, internally, there is a battle that I have to compete with all of the time. It's so shocking, but I think it's so helpful when people are more comfortable and in a very courageous space to share their own personal story in this particular field, because it then adds an reassurance to other people who you're either speaking to in person or people that are listening to podcasts or to any other form of media, and it gives them the reassurance that there are other people, even if you didn't expect it, they are going through something, and that promotes awareness, maybe even a nod of acceptance. There's tools that can help to calm a certain state, or they can go and ask for help, or they can speak to a close member of their family or a close friend, just so that they're speaking to share that there is a challenge that they're going through, but they need to be reassured that they're in a safe environment to do so. And your little comment of crises of confidence, obviously I don't ever want anybody to be in a state where they're feeling bad or where they're struggling, but to put that term on it, that resonates with me so much, you have no idea. A crisis of confidence is something that probably most of us will experience from time to time. It's not then for everybody segregated into a situation where it can be classed as depression or anxiety. You could even label it as imposter syndrome for some people. But the fact that you've used crisis of confidence, it's normal. Most of us go through it. I've been through it recently. The last 3 months have completely floored me in terms of like this lack of confidence with certain things. It's really bizarre. Never experienced it. And I've had to speak to people, try and navigate how to deal with that so that it doesn't compound itself. Because there was always a fear very early on of it compounding itself and turned into a core problem for me. But thankfully, the tipping point for knowing what to do with it was that I was just out of focus, and I had a lack of clarity on what it was that I wanted to achieve. But that sense of being in a crisis, it's scary. It's not nice.
It's intense. Yeah, and you hit on a good point there. There is a lot of support around nowadays, and that's official support. And I know the NHS is going through some challenges, but there's a ton of charitable support out there. The NHS still provides support, and your friends and your family, are absolutely huge to it. And I'd be amazed if anybody starting a business didn't every now and again think, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
But that kind of look in the mirror, like, I don't know if I can do this or not. And we all get it. I don't know if that makes it any better or worse to know that everybody gets it. But it is really strange. And, and with my job, I have to be confident. And spoiler alert to people who meet me at events and stuff, sometimes I still need a high-put playlist beforehand. I still have a few songs that I have. But I'll have sit in my car and listen to it, but be in my headphones, and then the headphones will come out and you walk into a room and it's like, I still do that, I did it when I went to college on my first day when I was 16, and I'm 45, and I still do it sometimes for networking events and things like that, which I'm sure if anybody's listening, I will go, where's your headphones? Give me that sly look. Like, you seem confident today. What have you been listening to? But that works for me, and the same hype-up songs and things like that. And there's a lot around it, and it's interesting to hear that you've had that as well. Again, somebody who with the things you've done, and I guess the things I've done, but sometimes we still question ourselves. And that's okay.
Oh, completely. It was dark, and I've had dark, challenging chapters throughout my life up until this point. But the one over the last 3 months, that was new territory. That was. I have never had such a low self-esteem and low confidence about what I was doing. I just didn't know what to do with it. It was, I hope to God I never have that again, because it was crippling at times. It was awful. And you almost feel false when you're in that frame of mind, because when you go out and meet clients and you're like going to networking events and speaking to people, there was almost like this protective facade that was up, and I'm very, very in tune with wanting people to meet the authentic me. There's what you see is what you get. But they weren't at that point, and I was so aware of it, and I felt like, oh my God, I'm standing in front of these people and I'm being so false because I'm having to pretend to be this version of myself, and I don't feel okay. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I feel like this at the moment, but I know that I'm not okay, and I feel incredibly vulnerable because I don't know what the solution is. I don't know where it's come from, and I don't know what the solution is. But what ended up being the eureka, like, oh God, I can get over that line now, I feel much better, was to look to regain clarity and focus on what it is that I'm looking to achieve in terms of helping people. Podcast has been, a great help. Because we can have conversations like this, the real conversations, nothing's forced, nothing's scripted. Wasn't expecting to share this, by the way, which is, I suppose, beauty in itself. But yeah, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we go through, different chapters and different waves in our lives. Life isn't linear. We have good days, we have bad days, and it's just acknowledging that on the bad days, what do you have as your go-to in your arsenal that you can draw from to make sure that you stabilise yourself in whatever it is that's happening, so that you don't fall down a well quickly and fast, because it happens thick and fast. One of my things that really helps me is if I go out walking with somebody and I'm talking to them on the walk, because I hate this intense thought of me being under a spotlight where someone's talking at me and they can see into my soul. I feel very uncomfortable with that. So the walking and talking has certainly helped.
That's so interesting. So being next to somebody is different to kind of being that face-to-face element there as well.
I
That's really
hate it.
interesting. I think as well, yeah, there's the good point about that, an interesting point about that is that it's exhausting as well, isn't it? When you are,
Oh, yeah.
I know the fake it till you make it, and everybody puts on a face for this, and this, but
Yeah.
it's absolutely exhausting. And then you can't actually deal with it when you're not being that fake version, if that makes sense. Once you switch it off, then you don't have any energy left to sort out the real version, and it can, like you say, I think you said fall down a well was your version of it, and you really can, because you just can't, you don't have time to regenerate, rejuvenate and do all those things that you're supposed to do, like go for a walk. Sometimes that is just too much, but there's a lot of support and help and things out there, and it's, I don't know if I want to say it's normal nowadays. There's a lot more of it. I see it in the education space with young people for sure. It's challenging, but you find ways around it, and you're doing this podcast, and that's helping, which is great.
Yeah. It's an interesting turn of events. I didn't expect to talk about anything like that, but it's the truth. It's what's real, and it just that time it just came out. It is what it is. So your career then, Danny. So there's been lots that's been achieved, and definitely sing about your wins and all of the positive things when you next go to a networking event, and try to not focus on the negatives. That's something, by the sounds of it, that you've learned. So over the course of your career, what would you say has been your biggest highlight?
Other than photographing Metallica, of course.
Yeah.
Career-wise, for me, it's going to sound so cheesy and cliche, but I'm doing it anyway. It's when the students say thank you because they've either got what you're on about or they appreciate the hard work you've put in. I think lately, students connecting on LinkedIn and seeing some of them out and about. I bumped into one the other day, actually, at work, who now works on the floor above me. But them saying, we remember you. You were always full of energy. You always made us laugh. You made learning enjoyable. You brought the right people in. I've achieved this, and this. Your lessons were great. For me, career highlight-wise, I would say it's the fact that they actually remembered little old me. Because remember, I am just me in my head. I'm just like, oh, well, you got to work. You need to blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'll make an impact. And all those kind of things that the teaching adverts say that you're going to do. So to have them still come back years later. In fact, I'm going for lunch with one of them next Wednesday, because they've now finished their degree apprenticeship, and we've kept in touch, and now we're back in Birmingham. So to do that, and for that, he's going to, he always says like, oh, thanks very much. Without you booking that day at that business, we wouldn't have done that. So for me, it's things like that where they go, yeah, we remember you. Yeah, you're all right, you. That's probably the career highlight for me.
Yeah, knowing that you've made a great impact on either one person's life or on a group of people's lives is, it's rewarding being in the education space.
Yeah, it really is. And sometimes it takes a while for that to kick in. And it might be the same when you start your business. You might not realise the impact you have in the first 6 months, year, 2 years. You were talking earlier that, you've made that impact already. A couple of quotes and comments here or there. It doesn't sound like much, but they're big deals, aren't they? When you're actually, this is actually purposeful.
Yeah, purpose. Living by your purpose is everything. That's as a compass to keep you focused and aligned. If you feel that you're fulfilling a purpose, you sleep better at night. You stop questioning different things. It's just like, I can be in such a relaxed, content space if I'm fulfilling my purpose. So there was one interesting point that you made when we have spoken previously. So to ensure that you're aligned with your why, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, and this comes into kind of the authenticity and things and I know that these words are bandied about all the time now. Find your why, and you'll see it on every single Instagram or TikTok thing over a sunset background or whatever. You get all this, be authentic and be yourself and things. And it is hard to do that, to be yourself, because sometimes, the authentic me is, I just want to kind of watch Star Trek for a bit or something and not talk to anyone.
Yeah.
So trying to be that authentic.
Yeah.
But in terms of your why, it's, I guess I go to work because I need money because I have a mortgage and stuff, and I like to go on holiday and I like to eat food and stuff. But when I looked at changing roles and things, I still wanted to work in that education space.
Yeah.
I always preferred that education side of things, because I guess my why is, okay, yes, I need money, but can I also help people while I'm earning that money? Can I make a little bit of a difference to those people? I guess, the authentic me is out and about a lot of the time, but it's kind of outgoing and confident and friendly. I guess there's a couple of different types. This is really interesting, actually. So I hope you won't want me to give a short answer. There's a couple of different types of the authentic me. There is the authentic me that wants to get on my bike and go in the middle of a countryside where nobody is, or sit and watch telly. But there's also an authentic me that really quite enjoys going and talking to people I've never met before, and helping people out and being bubbly and confident and outgoing. So it's that why of, can I still help people with what I'm doing? And if I can, then I work harder and I'm happier with it.
Yeah.
That's my why, which seems to be a bit similar to yours.
Well,
in all honesty, with what
this is why I invited you onto the show, because the values alignment, there's lots of different touch points there. And I thought, Danny would be a nice guest to have on.
Thank you. Well, I hope I have been a nice guest for you to be on. And
well, we've discussed all sorts, haven't we?
We can do another couple of hours if you fancy it.
We absolutely could. You've discussed the 49ers. I've kind of bared my soul. You've given us your career highlights. It's wonderful. So, Danny, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so grateful for your time, and it's been lovely to catch up, and I will look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Charlotte, and all the best for you and this podcast.